Hello and a very warm welcome to the Analyst dated 26th December 2025, brought to you by Vajiram and Ravi, wherein we'll be covering the 7 set of current affairs issues which are featured in today's newspaper. The handout of this very discussion has been pinned in the comment section below for your future reference. Beginning with the analysis section, recently the Union Home Minister has assured this thing that in the upcoming time, India will be able to attain self-reliance in the semiconductor industry. So in this respect, we'll be looking into that what is the present status when it comes to India, where do we stand at the global level, what all challenges we are witnessing when it comes to this particular industry, and what needs to be done so that we can realize this idea of attaining self-reliance when it comes to semiconductors. Moving on to the second topic, herein we'll try and understand that why in the recent time we are witnessing various instances of mob lynching incidences. And we'll also be looking into that what all steps we have taken to address this particular law and order problem and what more needs to be done to ensure that the social fabric of India remains intact. Moving on to the simplified section, herein we'll be covering the 5 set of current affairs issues in the most simple manner possible, and wherever needed, we'll be doing the value addition which would be relevant from PLIMS perspective. So stay tuned. Now, beginning with the first topic, at a recent growth summit which was organized in the state of Madhya Pradesh, the Honorable Union Home Minister Amit Shah has showed this confidence that soon India would be able to become self-reliant when it comes to the semiconductor industries. Okay, although despite the fact that we have entered into this value chain at a later date as compared to the other players like US, China, etc. Okay, this particular topic we can associate with GS paper 3 Indian economy. Now, the first thing that we need to understand is what are these semiconductors? Just focus upon the name, semiconductors. Just break it down. Okay, we have material which are conductors which enable the smooth flow of electric current. Okay, so those are conductors. For example, your copper wire. At the other extreme, we have insulators. Okay, wherein we have huge resistance to flow of electricity. Okay, so example is your glass. So semiconductor lies somewhere in between these two extremes, that is conductor and insulator. So as the name itself suggests, semiconductor. So here you will be witnessing some sort of resistance when it comes to the flow of electricity, but it would be less as compared to what we witness in the insulators. Okay, so when it comes to semiconductors, naturally they have weak conducting capacity. Okay, so in semiconductors also naturally there would be some sort of resistance to the flow of electricity. But when certain elements are added and an electric field is applied around them, then there is smooth flow of electric current. Okay, so when it comes to semiconductor, they can exist in pure forms like silicon, germanium, or in compound form. Okay, like gallium arsenide or cadmium selenide. Now, what is the property of semiconductor? Why everybody is mad behind semiconductor? Because they are the backbone of the modern technologies that you're witnessing. So, one of the prominent property of semiconductor is that you will be witnessing resistance. As I told you, in the normal state, there would be some sort of resistance when it comes to the flow of electric current. But when you apply an electric field around it and when you increase the temperature around it, the resistance would decrease. Okay, and that is why we are using it in majority of the equipments that you're seeing around yourself, like your PC, laptops, TV, etc., mobile phones. Now, when it comes to the semiconductors, chips, what are the different steps which are there when it comes to making a semiconductor chip? So, the first and the important step is design. Okay, so for designing, what do I need? I need advanced software. So just imagine like this, that I want to make a chip. So I am just thinking in my mind that, okay, how the chip would look like. Just connect it with the design element. Okay, so the same thing which I am doing in my brain, the same thing I am doing at a software. Then comes the second stage where I have to bring this thought which is there in my mind to reality. That is the fabrication stage. Okay, wherein whatever design you have made in your software, you are making it a reality. And when it comes to the fabrication labs, this is one of the most cost intensive process. Okay, for this you need raw materials, you need advanced machinery, etc. And the last stage is, that is the assembly, testing and packaging. Okay, I have made the chip, now you assemble it in the different electronic devices which are there, pack it and just parcel it. Okay, when it comes to India, where do you think we are standing when it comes to these different steps of making a semiconductor chip? We are majorly focusing upon this thing. But the actual profit margin lies at which two steps? That is the designing stage and the fabrication stage. Okay, so although we are making some sort of improvement when it comes to the assembly, testing and packaging, like recently the iPhone, Apple has, decided that it would be opening its one of the manufacturing base in India. So here we are doing what? Assembly, testing and packaging. But if you want to move to a higher profit margin, we need to move in the direction of which two stages? That is the design and the fabrication stage. Now, having understood that what is semiconductor, let's just look into that what is the present status when it comes to the semiconductor industry when it comes to India. So, the experts have pointed out that when it comes to the semiconductor industry, at a global level, it is expected that by 2030, the valuation of this particular market would be $1 trillion US. And in this respect, the government and the industries are hopeful that by 2030, we would be occupying a substantial portion of it. Why we are saying this? Just have a look at this particular graph. So in 2023, when you talk about the size of Indian semiconductor market, it was roughly $38 billion. And just in a span of 1 year, we have increased it to $45 to $50 billion. And that is the reason we are hopeful that by 2030, we will be able to increase the size of Indian semiconductor market by 10 or $110 billion. So that is the reason the government as well as the Union Home Minister, they are hopeful that even though we have started late, but over a period of time, maybe by 2030 or maybe by 2040s, we will be able to attain self-reliance in this particular industry. Now, you need to understand that who are the major players when it comes to this particular industry or this market. So, it is basically your East Asian countries like Taiwan. They have the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. South Korea, they have Samsung. China, Nora Technology. And these three major countries account for 70% of the global market share. And when you talk about the designing step, who do you think would be having a major share in this respect? It is your none other than USA. Okay. So when it comes to the designing stage of the chips and all, herein the major performer or the top performer is USA. It has the major tech giants like Intel and Qualcomm. When it comes to countries like Germany and Netherlands, they are basically focusing on specialty chips and automotive application. Now, do you think that without making any achievement, the government is so hopeful that we will be able to attain self-reliance in this particular market? The answer is no. We have made some improvement. Based on that only, the minister is making a, or giving us assurance that we will be able to attain a self-reliance in this particular market. So what all achievements we have done when it comes to this semiconductor market? So recently, if you people are following the newspaper, you must have come across the Vikram 3201. It is India's first fully indigenous microprocessor and it has been built by the Semiconductor Laboratory of ISRO. When it comes to Dhruv 64, it is India's first homegrown 1.0 gigahertz 64-bit dual-core microprocessor and it has been developed by CDAT under the Microprocessor Development Program. Let's look into the other features of Dhruv 64. So when you talk about Dhruv 64, it has dual-core processor. So its ability to handle multiple tasks would be great. Okay. Normally, when you see when it comes to males and females, females are good at multitasking and that is what this Dhruv 64 is going to do. But when it comes to males, if you give them a lot of instruction at the same time, they will get confused. They are efficient when it comes to doing one work at a time, but if you give them a lot of instruction at one go, they at times get confused. When it comes to Dhruv 64, it is going to work exactly like a female brain's work. Okay, so if there are two tasks, task A and task B, I have given two tasks to this particular processor. So let's suppose task A is almost 50% complete, task B is 70% complete. So this Dhruv 64, it would be prioritizing task B. So it would complete task B first and then it would focus back upon task number A. Okay. So this would improve the overall efficiency. Then it has super scalar execution. So you can give more task and it would be able to do them in a timely manner. It is compact size and it is ready for use in many systems. Okay, so these are some of the key features of Dhruv 64. So is it like this is the first microprocessor that we have built in India? No, previously also we have done great advancement when it comes to microprocessor development ecosystem in India. We had Shakti, which was developed by IIT Madras way back in 2018, and this was basically for space and defense applications. Then we have Ajit. It was developed by IIT Bombay way back in 2018, and this is related to industrial and robotic applications. Then recently in 2025 we had Vikram, built by the ISRO. Right now we studied, and as we know, this Vikram word is more or less associated with space, and that is the use of Vikram also. It is used for space application, okay, for navigation, guidance, mission operation, etc. And lastly we have Tejas 64. It was built in 2025 itself by CDAC, and it is for industrial automation. So this tells us that when it comes to India, we have made some great achievements when it comes to the semiconductor value chain. Now, the second aspect that we need to understand is why everybody is worried about this particular market and why India wants to focus upon this particular market. So the first thing that you need to understand is, that is something that I told you in the initial discussion phase only, that when it comes to semiconductor, they form the backbone of the modern technology. Any gadget you pick up, you will be needing semiconductor chips in order to enhance its functioning. Okay, if you talk about using the advanced technologies which are coming up like AI, machine learning, Internet of Things, wherein a lot of devices would be talking among themselves and you will be able to control your home appliances and devices right from your office. Okay, so all this would be possible with semiconductor chips, okay, which is going to make these ideas a reality. Then if we want to move in the direction of Industry 4.0, we need to focus upon semiconductor industry. What is this Industry 4.0? Wherein we are going to build up smart factories. Smart factories as in there would be, an integration of physical as well as the digital aspects. Basically realize the Internet of Things, etc. So if you want to realize this idea of Industry 4.0, we need semiconductor industry. Only then we will be able to make use of the advanced technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, etc. Then if we focus upon this particular industry, it would be having a ripple effect. Obviously, if this industry is going to grow, if the size of this market is going to grow in future, it would be creating the jobs in other sectors like your electronics, automotive and telecom. Okay, if not in the high value chain, that is in the fabrication lab or designing part, in the back-end manufacturing, that is basically your assembling, testing, packaging, in that respect also it would be creating a lot of jobs in these particular sectors. Then as I told you, this would enable us to realize the emerging technologies like AI, 5G, driverless cars, the idea that we have, that is possible only and only with semiconductor chips. So that is the reason if you want to make these amazing ideas a reality, you need to pay emphasis upon the semiconductor industry. And then we want to integrate ourselves in the global value chain. So in this respect also you have to focus upon semiconductor industry. Okay, as various multinational companies, because of the US and China strained relation, they want to shift their manufacturing base. So this is a good opportunity for India. We should attract these multinational companies like what we have done with Apple. Okay, although as I told you, when it comes to India, we are making somewhat good, achievement when it comes to the assembling, testing and packaging part. We need to move to higher profit margin steps, that is designing and fabrication thing. But although it is said that, okay, we need to move in these particular, steps, that is fabrication lab and designing. But what are the challenges which India is facing? So first and the foremost challenge is the capital intensive nature of the fabrication units, the long gestation period of fabrication units. Okay, so when it comes to fabrication units, you need 300 different high technology inputs. You need a gestation period of 5 years before it would start doing full production. So you need to have a patience. Okay, And for this, the industry should be provided with patience capital. What is patience capital? It does not mean that the capital is thick. It basically implies that if the government is providing some financial incentive to the industries, it should not wait for reward. Okay, it should not wait that okay, the money should be coming back to me in less number of years. It should wait for the industry to perform better, and then only it should think that okay, the money should come back to me now. So we need huge amount of capital, and we need advanced high-tech technology inputs for this. So that is lacking when it comes to India. So this is one problem. Then if you look at the global level, when it comes to the semiconductor market, we have concentrated supply chain. We have discussed right now that who are the major players when it comes to this particular market. You have Taiwan, you have US when it comes to chip designing, when it comes to China, Japan, they are doing great when it comes to the fabrication part, etc. Now the problem is, if let's suppose when it comes to Taiwan, which is making over 60% of the world semiconductors, if it is struck by any natural disaster, so that is going to impair the advancement that we are doing in the domain of electric vehicles, okay, in the domain of electronics. Or what if these countries, which more or less have some sort of monopoly when it comes to semiconductor market, they start exercising their monopoly and start weaponizing trade. And that is what China is doing. China has imposed export controls when it comes to rare earth elements like germanium and gallium. So this is another problem. And why it is problematic for India? Because India does not have the raw materials which is needed to make great advancement in this particular market, like silicon, germanium, gallium arsenide, silicon carbide, etc. We are majorly dependent upon the imports. So that is another problem. And if these countries start, weaponizing their trade, then it is going to severely impair the advancement which India has to make in the domain of electronic manufacturing, in the domain of electric vehicles, etc. Okay, and this is getting impacted because recently China has imposed the export controls when it comes to these rare earth elements. Then see, as I told you, when I say that I have to attain self-reliance in this particular market, what do I mean? Do I mean that, okay, you have to do great when it comes to assembly, testing and packaging? No, I mean that you have to move to the steps wherein you have higher profit margin, that is fabrication and designing. But the problem is, for this to happen, you need the talent pool. Okay, fabrication thing we have discussed that the problem is we don't have enough capital. So that needs to be addressed. For chip designing part, you need talent. But the problem with India is there is outdated curriculum. We don't have industry academia linkage. So the outdated curriculum is being taught to the graduates again and again. So when it comes to the graduates, they don't have the necessary skill set which is needed for industry 4.0. And that is what has been highlighted by the economic survey of 23-24, that only 51% of our graduates are employable. And the problem get even worse because when it comes to India, we don't focus upon formal vocational skill training. Only 4% of India's workforce has received formal vocational training. We majorly focus upon rote learning and all, but we don't focus upon vocational training. So that is another problem. Now, let's just look into what all steps the government has taken to make a great leap in this particular market. So government came up with the India Semiconductor Mission way back in 2021, wherein the government is providing the financial support for investment in semiconductor fabrication. Just pay attention to this thing, display manufacturing and chip design. So here the government also wants the private sector to enter in these higher profit margin steps, that is fabrication and chip designing. And under this particular mission, the government has approved 10 semiconductor projects across 6 states. And recently, one of the remarkable thing that we have done is the first commercial silicon carbide fabrication lab is coming up in Odisha. Then the government is providing design linked incentive scheme. Again, this came up in 2021. Herein again the government is providing financial incentives to the private sector when it comes to the chip designing part and its deployment in different equipments. Then we have PLI scheme, wherein again the government is providing financial incentives to the private sector, okay, which is roughly around 4% to 6%, but that production needs to be done within India. Okay, and this incentive would be provided for a period of 5 years. Then we are trying to develop reliable supply chains. So in this respect, India signed an agreement with USA Okay, and we have come up with the initiative on critical and emerging technologies, and this agreement was signed way back in 2022, wherein one of the focus area is resilient semiconductor supply chain, because we know that when it comes to semiconductor supply chain, we are witnessing concentrated supply chain. So in order to build resilient supply chain with respect to semiconductor, we agreed with US with respect to this particular initiative. And then we have Semicon India program, wherein again the government has made 76,000 crore outlay for development of semiconductor display manufacturing ecosystem in the country. Now, having understood that why it is important, what all challenges we are witnessing, just connect the challenges with the way forward. We have studied that one of the problem is when it comes to fabrication unit, it is capital intensive. So what should be the way forward? Obviously, the government should provide patient capital. Okay, and it should not be like in 3 years or in 5 years you have to return me. No, let the private sector make the profits, and then only the government should ask that you return the money to me. And initially, India should focus upon back-end manufacturing, that is assembly, testing and packaging. Once we have attained stability in this back-end manufacturing, then the government should start focusing upon chip designing and fabrication unit. Then, in order to develop resilient supply chain, we should enter into collaboration with the countries which believe in rule-based order, like your Japan is there, like Taiwan is there, okay, to build resilient supply chain with respect to the raw materials needed for this semiconductor market. Then we should go for chip diplomacy. Right now, USA and China, they are having strained economic relation, and in this particular backdrop, what is happening? The MNCs are looking for another manufacturing base. Okay, so that is what is referred to be as China plus one policy. So it is high time India should make best use of this particular opportunity, like what we have done in case of Apple. So in case of Apple, as I told you, we are doing good when it comes to assembly, testing and packaging, but we should move towards the other steps also. And when it comes to the chip designing part, for that we need what? We need skilled workforce. So we need to focus upon formal skill training of our workforce. We need to revisit the academic curriculum, and the curriculum should be designed in accordance with the industries. Okay, so there should be industry academia linkage. Only then we will be able to make sure that the graduates have the necessary skill set needed by Industry 4.0. We studied this thing that when it comes to the fabrication part, it is capital intensive, and when it comes to chip designing, you need advanced software. So for that, we need to focus upon what? The R&D part. So in this respect, the government should increase the expenditure done on R&D to 2% of the GDP, like what we have in case of China. And we need to come up with better patent laws, okay, or intellectual property right laws. That would give the confidence to the private sector that, okay, if I come with a unique chip design, that would be protected, okay, if we have strong IPR regime. That's all that we need to know with regard to this particular topic. Based on the discussion that we did, I have framed a practice question for you people. So do write this answer, and with this, let's move on to the next topic. Now, sadly, from various parts of the India, we are witnessing instances of mob lynching. This particular topic you can associate with GS paper 4, ethics and human values, and you can also relate it with GS paper 3, internal security, because on this particular topic, UPSC has asked a mains question. Okay, so we'll be discussing this topic in great detail. First of all, what is mob lynching? Just focus upon the word mob. Mob basically refers to a group of people, and these group of people actually use violence as a form to administer justice, and that too without a trial. And one of the famous form of mob lynching is basically cow vigilantism. What is cow vigilantism? So this group of people, they have the suspicion that a person A is going to do cow slaughter. So just based on this mere suspicion, they torture this particular person, and at times it leads to death of that particular person A. And this is all being done just in the name of cow protection. Now let's just look into that what are the reasons why we are witnessing mob lynching instances in India. First and the foremost is perceived threat to culture or identity. This you can relate with cow vigilantism, wherein the people related to Hindu community, since they consider cow as pious, okay, So just if they get to know, or if there is a false news or suspicion that a person A is going to do cow slaughter, based on this mere suspicion, they enter into mob lynching related instance. And this is something that you can very well understand by referring to 2015 Dadri lynching incident, okay, wherein just on the mere suspicion of cow slaughter, Muhammad Akhlaq was killed by a mob. The matter is still pending in the court. Then another prominent reason is administrative failure. Now, although the Supreme Court in Tehseen S. Poonawalla versus Union of India case of 2018 has warned against mobocracy and has directed the state that you appoint nodal officers to address this instance of mobocracy or mob lynching and enact deterrent laws. Despite this directive given by the Supreme Court, only certain states like Manipur, West Bengal, Rajasthan, they have come up with stringent mob lynching, anti-mob lynching laws, but the other states have not, effectively implemented the directive given by the Supreme Court in this particular judgment. Now, just focus upon this word mobocracy. Why this word mobocracy you think Supreme Court would have given? This word implies that a group of people, that is mob, they are taking rule of law in their hands and they are administering justice without a trial. And this is a severe blow to democracy. Okay, despite the Supreme Court directives given in this particular judgment, what we are seeing is various states, they have not come up with stringent laws to deal with mob lynching related instance. So obviously when you don't have law, the police or the enforcement agencies, their response would be late. And that is what was highlighted by the National Human Rights Commission in its 2023 report. And if you look at the conviction rate, that is also very low. And this is something that you can very well understand by referring to the recent instance. Now, as I told you, this Dadri lynching incident this is a matter which is sub judice, okay? The Supreme Court is looking into this. In this respect, UP government has, made a plea before the Supreme Court that you withdraw the charges against all the accused. Although thankfully Supreme Court has rejected the UP government's plea. So this highlights what? Even the administration is not too serious about giving punishment to these people who are engaging in mob lynching. Then another problem is stress deficit in the institutions. This is merely because of the delayed justice, okay, huge pendency of cases that we have in the courts. So now the people think that if we go to the police station, then we have to go to courts. It might take 5 years, 10 years, okay, even when the case is very small. So what they are doing in the name of instant justice, they are resorting to violence and they are administering justice without trial. And this is something that we witnessed in the state of Bihar recently, wherein a cloth vendor was killed by 8 people just on this, suspicion that this person had engaged in activities of theft, okay. So this is because people are more resorting to instant justice rather than relying on police and the courts. Then another major problem is the social media. So false news. Previously in, the state of UP, there was false news that the people who are coming in the village, they are going to kidnap the children, and that led to various mob lynching related instances. And this is something that you can see in this particular figure also, okay. So this state-wise data has been provided by the Center for Study of Society and Secularism, and it tells us that in 2025, India has witnessed roughly 15 cases and majority of them in UP. So that was the reason why the government gave this directive to WhatsApp that you restrict the number of forwards. And that is the reason in 2018 WhatsApp took the decision that now whatever message you want to forward, you cannot forward it to more than 5 people. Okay. Then we have moral vigilantism. Basically, these group of people, they interpret the social norms. And whatever is their interpretation, that is right. That should be the social norm. Okay. And if somebody goes against that, if they have this mere suspicion also that this person A is going against my interpretation of social norm, they enter into mob lynching related instances. Okay. This you can very well understand by looking into the killing of women on the mere suspicion of witchcraft, because according to these people or the mob, engaging in black magic is bad. Fine, you have your own interpretation of social norm. But just on the mere suspicion, how can you kill a woman? That is the problem. Even if they have, mere suspicion that you are going against their interpretation of social norm, they would enter into mob lynching related instances. Then mob psychology is there. Why this mob psychology is there? Because they think that if we are attacking a person, okay, in a group, it would be difficult for the authorities to figure out that who is the real culprit. And this is getting, more intensified because of the low conviction rate that we are witnessing with respect to mob lynching related instances. Okay. So these are the prominent reasons with respect to mob lynching related instance. What is the impact of these? So first and foremost, it is going to distort the secular fabric of the Indian society. Why? Because if there is low conviction rate, if you're not stopping these people who are entering into such, or engaging in mobocracy, ultimately this is going to incentivize other peoples also to do caste related violence, okay, to do gender related violence, like for example witch hunting, etc. Okay, so this you can relate it with your instrumental conditioning. Just like a person A who has break the traffic rules, but the traffic police is not charging, he is not giving any punishment to this person A, this would incentivize other people also to break the traffic rules, and that is what is happening when it comes to this mob lynching incidents also. Adequate punishment is not given, so this is incentivizing the other person also, and it is going to incentivize in future also other people also, because they know the conviction rate is very low. So this would incentivize other people also to engage in mobocracy, and this would make it very difficult for the people who are belonging to minority communities like Muslims, the vulnerable section like women and the STs and ST to live a dignified life. Then it is going to endanger freedom of speech and expression. If I have this fear that, okay, if anything I speak, I might be attacked by a mob, so this would be curtailing my freedom of speech and expression. Then it goes against the idea of rule of law, because these group of people, what they are doing, they are administering justice without any trial. So this goes against the idea of rule of law, and if you don't punish these people, what would happen? The other people would also be incentivized to break the rule of law. Then it would create fear psychosis among the minorities like Muslims, like the vulnerable sections like women and STs and STs. And this you can very well understand by what the India Spend in its report has pointed out, that if you look at the mob lynching related instance, the major victim is basically your Muslim community. And the report clearly points out that majority of the time these instances are associated with the identity of the victim. Okay, if a Hindu person is taking the cows, you will not see mob lynching instance in the name of cow vigilantism. But if a Muslim person is taking their cows, maybe to sell that cow in an animal fair, but since that person is a Muslim person, he would become a victim of cow vigilantism. And this can create a fear psychosis among the minorities, just like women have this fear whenever they are walking on the streets at midnight. So the same fear psychosis the minority sections would be witnessing if we don't take necessary actions against such people. Then it also have economic impact, because of this the animal trade is getting impacted. Okay, and this has severely impacted the Banjara nomadic community in Rajasthan. If they want to sell their cattle in an animal fair, they are not able to do that because they have this fear that once I take my cattle outside my house, I would become a victim of cow vigilantism. Okay, so it is severely impacting the cattle trade as well as meat export industries. Now, what are steps we have taken to address this particular problem? So when you talk about the Delhi government, they are planning to come up with a compensation policy, wherein we are planning that we will be providing compensation to the person who is a victim and their family, and this compensation roughly would be in the range of 3 to 10 lakh, and this much money would be provided if you have witnessed some sort of injuries based on the severity. Then we have made necessary changes in our legal provisions with respect to Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. So we have section 103 clause 2. If mob lynching leads to murder of a person, and in this particular mob lynching incident 5 or more people were involved and this murder was committed, and if it was motivated by the identity based grounds. Okay. So in this case, the punishment would be death penalty or life imprisonment along with a fine. But if there is, this mob lynching incident merely causes grievous, hurt to the person, to the victim, then in that case, the punishment would be 7 years and a fine. Then, as I told you, one of the major cause of mob lynching instances is the misinformation spreading on social media. So to address this, government has directed the social media platforms like WhatsApp that you limit the number of forwards, and that was something which the WhatsApp complied with also way back in 2018. Then there are certain states which have taken good step in this direction, and Manipur was the first state who has passed the anti-lynching law. And keeping Manipur law as a model law, the other states like West Bengal and Rajasthan has also enacted laws on similar lines. Okay, but the other states have not yet effectively implemented the directions given by the Supreme Court in Tehseen Poonawalla versus Union of India case of 2018. So what should be done to effectively address this particular problem? So we need to ensure that whatever guideline the Supreme Court has given in this 2018 judgment should be effectively implemented. What are those guidelines? Let's look into that. So Supreme Court stated that there should be a designated officer who should not be below the rank of Superintendent of Police. Okay, he would be the one who would be assigned this role, that you have to make sure that such incidents are not occurring in your area. Then whenever such incidents happen, immediately an FIR needs to be registered. And it is the duty of the station house officer that he has to inform the nodal officer in the district with respect to that particular incident, and they have to ensure that adequate protection is provided to the victim's family, so that we can prevent further harassment of the victim and their families. Investigation of the crime should be personally monitored by the nodal officer. What is the duty of police officer? The duty of every police officer is to cause a mob to disperse that seems to cause violence in their opinion. There should be adequate provision for victim compensation, like what Delhi government is planning to do. That should be there in other states also. And in case of negligence of duty on the part of nodal officer, appropriate action should be taken by the state government within 3 months of such instances. And what would be the role of the state? So it has to ensure that whenever there is negligence of duty on part of the nodal officer, adequate disciplinary action is taken against that particular official. If they did not prevent the instance of mob lynching, despite having prior knowledge with respect to the same, where the incident has already occurred, an official did not promptly apprehend and institute criminal proceeding against the culprit. So basically, in this, the Supreme Court is trying to define that what would be the negligence of duty. So negligence of duty would be the police officer had the prior knowledge that okay, this area is prone to mob lynching incident, so there could be a mob lynching related incident, and he did not take preventive steps in this regard. That would be negligence of duty. And if the incident has happened and then also the nodal officer has not taken adequate criminal proceeding against the culprits, okay, so that again would be considered to be as negligence of duty. So all these directives of the Supreme Court needs to be effectively implemented by the states, and keeping in light the laws passed by the states like Rajasthan, West Bengal, other states should also come up with anti-lynching related stringent laws. Okay, and going forward, we need to ensure that the value-based education is provided to our children so that we can build the value of tolerance and respect for different religions among them. So, UPSC has asked a PYQ on this particular topic. Do practice this also, and on similar lines, based on our discussion, I have framed a practice question for you people. So, do practice this, and with this, let's move on to the simplified section. Now, recently, the government has linked the NAT grid, that is the intelligence grid, with the National Population Register. This particular topic you can associate with the polity section of a prelim syllabus. Now, what is NAT grid? It is basically a secure platform which enable the enforcement agencies and the investigation agencies to access the database, okay, related to a particular individual. Now, the government has stated that this would be linked with the National Population Register, wherein we have family-wise related details of 119 crore residents of India. Now, when it comes to the Union Home Ministry, it has been pushing for enhanced use of NAT grid by the state police forces and the central law and security agencies, so that basically we can speed up the trial process, fasten up the criminal proceeding, etc. Now, what we need to know is, what is this NAT grid? So it is basically a platform which enables the police agencies, the investigation agencies to securely access government and private databases in a real-time manner. Okay, and this information would be related to terrorist, economic crimes, similar incidents, so that the security agencies could make sure that if a person has done some crime, okay, in, let's suppose, a particular state A, the same crime he is not able to replicate in another state. So that is why sharing of information is needed. And it fasten up the proceedings also. The nodal ministry is your Ministry of Home Affairs. And when it comes to this NAT grid, this idea was conceptualized after the Mumbai attack, okay, which took place in 2008. Okay, so this was first conceptualized in 2009 and it has become operational just last year. Although it was conceptualized way back in 2009, but it became operational last year. And it is accessible to various security agencies like Intelligence Bureau, the Research and Analysis Wing, NIA, ED, Financial Intelligence Unit, NCB and Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. And this information is available only to the police officers who have the rank of Superintendent of Police, not the police officer below this particular rank. Now, one advanced tool that we have come up in the NAT grid is Gandiva. Okay, so it is an upgraded NAT grid tool which enables the agencies to get the data from multiple sources and analyze that data. So it is going to use facial recognition technology and entity resolution. Now how it works? Let's suppose the security agencies want to know information with respect to a particular person and they have the photo of that particular suspect. Okay, so what they have to do, they have to simply feed in the image of the suspect in the Gandiva platform. Okay, so this tool, what it would be doing, since it is going to use facial recognition technology, so it would just access the other information related to maybe your Aadhaar card, telecom KYC, vehicle registration, driving license. Okay, so it would be searching all these documents and with the help of this facial recognition technology, if it get any matching information, it would be providing it to the enforcement agencies. Okay, so hence saving the time and resources of the investigator. So that is how this Gandiva, which is an advanced tool under the NAT grid, is going to work. Now recently the Ministry of Home Affairs has informed the Lok Sabha that we are also developing organized crime network database under this NAT grid thing. Okay, so this would be a new development under the NAT grid like the Gandiva. Now when it comes to the request for data access, what are the different kind of access requests that could be there? So there are three categories: non-sensitive data, sensitive data and highly sensitive data. And when it comes to bank statement, financial transaction, tax information, export import data, they have been classified as highly sensitive information. And in this respect, the experts have raised privacy concerns because of the recent development. The experts have pointed out that without even you have to register an FIR and then also you can get all the data with respect to me. So that is going to severely impact my right to privacy. So in this respect, the government has given this reply that we have an oversight mechanism. Okay, so every information that is being sought of by the enforcement agencies, that has to be feedden into the system. So we maintain a proper record and the purpose of the information needs to be declared before you are seeking the information with respect to a person, and the senior police officer would be having an oversight with respect to the same. Okay, so basically this is a debate of privacy versus national security. Now what is this National Population Register? So it is basically a database of your usual residents in India. Don't confuse it with the citizens. It is usual residents. So who are usual residents? So this is going to include your citizens as well as non-citizens who have been living in a country for more than 6 months. And the nodal agency is basically your Office of the Registrar General and the Census Commissioner of India under Ministry of Home Affairs. And this NPR is linked to the census. So when it comes to this NPR, the data was first collected way back in 2010 when we were carrying out the census of 2011. And then later on in 2015, this NPR database was updated and herein we use door-to-door enumeration thing. And it was expected that it would be further upgraded way back in 2021, but because of the COVID-19 thing, things got delayed. Although when it comes to the upcoming census, that is in 2027, the census is going to carry out, but the government has not given any clarity with respect to this thing, that whether along with the census, we are also going to update the database with respect to NPR. Okay, so no clarity is there with respect to the same. When it comes to NPR, it is considered to be the first step to NRC, that is National Register of Citizens. Now, what is the difference between the two? When it comes to NPR, as I told you, it is a database of usual residents of India. It could include citizens also, non-citizens also. When it comes to NRC, National Register of Citizens, here the word citizen itself suggests that it would be the database of genuine Indian citizens only. What is the legal basis? For NPR, it is Citizenship Rules 2023, and the rule is rule number 3 and sub rule number 4. When it comes to NRC, again, the legal basis is citizenship rules only, but the rule is different, rule number 4, rule number 4A. Applicability, so NPR would be applicable to all the usual residents regardless of the citizenship status. But NRC would be including only the data set with respect to the genuine Indian citizens. So you have to prove that you are an Indian citizen. And what is the purpose? Why do we create this NPR? So this database helps us in policy making, okay, that how many people are there in India, what all welfare services we need to provide. Okay, when it comes to NRC, this would be a database with respect to citizens. So the basic purpose of NRC would be to determine that who all are the genuine citizens of India. That's all with respect to this particular topic. Let's move on to the next one. Now, recently, India is going to be one of the first country in the Indian Ocean region to have more than 100 villages to be tsunami ready. This particular topic you can associate with prelims, environment as well as the international organization part. Now, I have already told you the context that India is going to be the first country in the Indian Ocean region which would be having more than 100 tsunami ready villages. Now, what is this tsunami ready villages initiative? So, this certification would be given to those villages which meet the following criteria. Therein, high awareness about tsunami is there, hazard preparedness and mapping is there. Okay, hazard preparedness is basically you, based on the past, data, you need to look into that how prone is a particular region to a particular disaster. Then public display of evacuation maps should be there, 24 hours warning system should be there, and the citizens, the people should participate in mock drills. So all these factors would be taken into account. Only then a village would be certified as tsunami ready village. Now, this certification program is basically awarded by UNESCO Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission. We'll be reading about this particular commission, don't worry. You need to understand that when it comes to this particular initiative, it is a voluntary community-based program. It would facilitate tsunami preparedness by collaborating with public, the community leaders, local, national emergency management agencies. So it is a collaborative effort. And what is the recent development? Previously, we had 24 coastal villages which were certified as tsunami ready village, and the recent addition, majorly we are going to witness it from Odisha, which is going to add 72 more villages to this particular list. So you can also get a prelims question that in which of the state we have the major number of tsunami ready villages. Okay, talking about the IOC, that is your Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission. As I told you, we will be reading about this. So it was established way back in 1960. As the name itself suggests, it would be promoting marine scientific cooperation among the different member states so that we go with the idea of blue economy or sustainable use of ocean resources. It has 150 member states and India is also a member. What are its focus area? So it works with the different members so that we can coordinate with each other in areas like ocean observation, tsunami warning, marine spatial planning, etc. And these are the areas where it would be focusing upon. And it leads the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development 2021-2030, which is also known as Ocean Decade. Okay, so that's all with respect to IOC. Now let's look into Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services. Okay, because this entity is also linked with this Tsunami Ready Village initiative. How? Let's understand this. Now, when it comes to this particular entity, it was created way back in 1999 under the Ministry of Earth Sciences. It is located in Hyderabad. And what are its key functions? So, it is a permanent member of UNESCO's Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, the commission that we read right now. It provides vital ocean-related information and advisory services to the fishermen, okay, etc., weather-related information to the fishermen. And they operate the Indian Tsunami Early Warning Center, which tracks the earthquakes globally and issue tsunami warning for the Indian Ocean region. And this is the entity which coordinate, okay, this is the coordinating institution for implementation of this tsunami-ready village initiative. That is the reason we are reading about this particular entity also. That's all with respect to this particular topic. Let's move on to the next one. Now, a study was carried out by a New York advisory firm, that is Tholons, and it pointed out that when it comes to India, the global capability centers are creating huge number of jobs. Okay, this particular topic you can associate with the economy section of your prelim syllabus. Now, first and foremost, you need to understand that what are these global capability centers. So, these are fully owned strategic offshore units of the MNCs, which is usually established in talent-rich, cost-effective locations like India, and they are created to provide specialized function like IT, finance, R&D, and customer service. Why they are created? Basically to minimize the cost, because if you open a global capability center in India, you can easily get the labor at a lower cost as compared to opening the same thing in an advanced country where the labor cost is high. Okay, so they provide back office support, and over a period of time they have evolved into innovation hubs and centers of excellence. They drive product development and complex business processes. So what are the key benefits for the MNCs? So they are able to access diverse global talent, operational efficiency is there because the cost is less, and enhanced control is there, and at the same time it also fosters innovation. Now, what is the role of these global capability centers when it comes to India? India has now become a center of high value technology driven solutions. We know that we are a great performer when it comes to the service sector, and that is the reason majority of the global capability centers are being opened in India. And initially it was usually in advanced cities like Hyderabad, Bangalore, etc. Okay, as you can see, Amazon has opened its GCCs in Hyderabad, and Goldman Sachs has opened it in Bangalore and Hyderabad. But now what the shift we are witnessing, that now these centers are being opened in tier 2 and tier 3 cities also. Okay, cities like Nagpur, Indore, etc. So when it comes to this GCCs, they are contributing 40% of the digital transformation projects, 20% of the world's chip designer, and 40% of India's service export. Okay, second only to IT services. And just like China has made great advancement in the manufacturing sector, okay, and what China has done for tech hardware, that is what India is doing when it comes to the services. So this opening of GCCs in India is enabling us to enhance and further boost our services export. Now let's come back to the study, what the study points out. So when you talk about the global capability centers, they are becoming the primary engine which is sustaining India's technology job market. Okay, so it is creating more number of jobs as compared to the normal IT firms that we have in India. If you go by the study, in October-December quarter of financial year 2026, it has witnessed 5 to 7% growth, and 48% of these centers are planning to expand their workforce. So it is a good news for the IT graduates that you will be able to get the employment, don't worry. Even though the large IT firms, they are not hiring more people. Now, what the report further points out, okay, so the report is done by a New York based advisory firm, that is Tholons. So it points out that when it comes to GCC in India, they are an area of hyperactivity, and it is like a second wave of capability because it is going to create huge number of high quality paying jobs. Okay, so as per this report, India now hosts around 1,850 such centers employing almost 2 million professionals, and it is projected to have more than 2,400 such centers by 2030. And when you talk about the number of people that it would be employing, so it is anticipated that it would be more than 3 million workers over the period of time. And when you talk about the market size of these GCCs in respect of India, it would be roughly $125 billion. And as I told you that initially these centers were coming up in advanced countries or tier 1 cities like your Hyderabad, like your Bangalore, but now these GCC are coming up in tier 2 and tier 3 cities also like Nagpur, Indore, Coimbatore, Kochi, etc. And why these are important, why It has become a second wave of capability because first it is giving a boost to the services exports of India, plus it is creating high, productive and better paid jobs. So when you talk about these centers, they are offering 12 to 20% higher salaries as compared to the traditional IT firms. Okay, that's all that we need to know with respect to this particular topic. Let's move on to the next one. From January onwards next year, India would be chairing the Kimberley Process, and this would be the third time India would be heading the Kimberley Process. This particular topic you can associate with the economy section of your prelim syllabus. So as I told you, it is not the first time that we are going to chair this Kimberley plenary process. It is the third time that India would be doing it. Lastly, we have done it in 2008 and 2019. When it comes to this Kimberley certification scheme process, what is this all about? So the major, goal of this particular certification scheme is that we have to prevent the trade in conflict diamonds. What are conflict diamonds? So if you go by the definition of this conflict diamond provided by the UN Security Council resolutions, okay, in these resolutions, the conflict diamonds have been clearly defined as those rough diamonds, okay, whose proceeds are basically used by the rebel groups to wage the war and to overthrow a legitimate government. Okay, so the main goal of this Kimberley process is to make sure that whatever trade in rough diamonds is happening across the globe, those diamonds should be conflict free. That means whatever money that a particular person is getting after this trading of rough diamonds should not be used to overthrow a legitimate government in any country. Okay, when it comes to India, which is the council which looks into all the processes related to Kimberley process, so it is your Gem and Jewelry Export Promotion Council. Now let's just look into certain facts with respect to this particular process. As I told you, it is a certification process which makes sure that whatever global trade is happening with respect to rough diamond, it is conflict-free diamond. So the certification scheme came into picture in 2003, and the importance of this particular process is highlighted by this very fact that roughly 99% of the global trade in rough diamond that is happening, that are conflict-free diamonds. Okay. So it has been able to realize the goal with which this certification scheme was put into place. When you talk about India, India was one of the founding member of this particular certification process. And as I told you, we have chaired this particular process 2 times previously, that is in 2008 and 2019. And this would be the third time that we'll be doing it from 1st January 2026. Now, when you talk about the members, it has 60 participants, and European Union with its 28 member state is also the participant. Okay, and when you talk about the chairmanship, it moves, okay, it rotates between the different participants. Since 2003, India is associated with all the working groups related to this particular process. And when you talk about the nodal department, which would be looking into all the processes certification aspect with respect to ensuring that the diamond is conflict free, that is looked into by Department of Commerce. And if you talk about the council, that is your Gem and Jewelry Export Promotion Council, as I told you previously. Okay, so that's all that we have to know with respect to this particular topic. Let's move on to the last topic of today's analyst. Now recently, the Food Safety and Standard Authority of India has banned the food firms from terming herbal infusions as tea. Okay, because according to the Food Safety and Standard Authority of India, you can label something as tea only when it is obtained from Camellia sinensis plant. Okay, this particular topic you can associate with the statutory body topic of your prelim syllabus. Now, the Food Safety and Standard Authority of India has told the food firms that you cannot label any drink as tea until and unless that thing is derived from Camellia sinensis plant. Okay, this is the plant from where, as you can see in this picture, the tea products are derived. So now this directive of Food Safety and Standard Authority of India clearly states that now the food firms would have to rebrand their product as herbal infusions and not as tea or botanical blends. Now this is going to severely hamper the smaller wellness brands. Okay, they would find it difficult to maintain their visibility because now the rebranding is going to happen. But the good part is it is going to reinforce the global reputation of Assam and Darjeeling tea. Okay, it is going to positively benefit the tea planters which are there in Assam and Darjeeling. When it comes to this particular plant, it is a species of green evergreen shrub, okay, from where we get the tea. So you cultivate it for leaves and leaf buds. So from here you get your black, green, kangra and instant teas. What is important from our exam perspective is prelim pointers related to this particular body. So it is a statutory body which was created way back in 2006. So it gets its power from Food Safety and Standard Authority of India Act of 2006, and this act was created by consolidating the previous acts which were there. Here is the list of the acts which were consolidated to create this 2006 act, which is the administrative ministry. So it is a Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Under this only this body is working. What are the functions? So it puts in place the food related standards. It put in place the food safety management system, basically providing the guidelines for business to implement effective food safety management system. Then it provides the food related licenses for imports also. Okay. Surveillance and monitoring, that whether adultering is being done in any of the food item or not, and whether the global firms, the food firms are adhering to the regulations of this particular entity or not. Then it also promotes consumer awareness and educate them about what we mean by food safety, hygiene, nutrition, etc. And anyone who is selling or importing food in India need to get the food license from this particular entity only. This entity is also important, okay, for accreditation of food testing laboratories throughout the India. So through this, group of food testing laboratories only, it is able to manage this surveillance and monitoring function. When you talk about the structure, it has 22 members and a chairperson, and one important thing on which you can get a prelims question is 1/3 of the members must be women. When you talk about chairperson of this particular entity, it is appointed by the central government, and this person should have held a position of not below the rank of Secretary to Government of India. It also have a team of scientists and researchers so that they can, effectively ensure this particular part, surveillance and monitoring, and they can also come up with adequate food standards as well. That's all that we need to know in today's Analyst. Quiz would be coming right up next. So don't forget to practice the quiz and check your knowledge. Till then, keep smiling, keep learning. Have a great day, all of you.